What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the AFC East Summit show. Tonight, we have a very polarizing topic to discuss. Excited to get into all that stuff. A little bit of NFL news as well prior to that, but more to come after this. What is happening, everybody? The draft is over. Free agency period definitely dwindled down quite a bit. Now we're getting some of these last-minute pickups and some camp bodies signed to teams. So, my name is Jake Padre. I'm your host tonight for the AFC East Summit show, joined by Anthony and Keith. And Keith with a very, very fun name tonight. Phillies equal best record. He's saying the Phillies are up right now as we speak, 3-0 over the Blue Jays. It is baseball season. You gotta love it. And what's more fun than going to a baseball game, right, Keith? Outside of maybe going to a football game.
Nothing's more fun than going to a baseball game. I think baseball trumps football as far as live experience goes.
Wow.
I just nothing like going to a baseball game, man.
See, I'm not gonna totally disagree with you on that, but I will say this: having grown up in a town that was like primarily spring training baseball, I lived in Sarasota, Florida, for a very long time. The only thing better than a baseball game is a high A baseball game in Florida.
Okay.
Let's go.
And you know, he can hear you heckle him.
Absolutely, you know. Absolutely. Yes. I love it. Well, guys, today we have a great topic, but before we get into that, I talked about wanting to discuss some of the NFL news that's going around. Most namely the Rashee Rice stuff. I mean, this guy just can't seem to stay out of the spotlight. Ends up getting allegedly hit a photographer at a nightclub early Monday morning. And man, this guy just can't stay out of the limelight when he needs to most, because he's got an ongoing case about his 119 mile per hour reckless driving stunt. So, Anthony, what's going on with this kid, man? Why can't he learn? You know, they're kids, I get it, but man, not good.
I mean, you're looking at a situation like, all right, you got into it once this offseason. Keep your nose clean. That's all you have to do. Like, if you got to spend the rest of the time until training camp just playing Xbox with your homies, like, just do that. Just like Fortnite, like Madden, whatever you have to do to keep yourself out of it. Because, like, this 119 mile an hour charge, we need to talk about at least a little bit of the financial impact of that. If Rashee Rice does face an NFL suspension, he will forfeit all of the guarantees in his contract. That's not to say he won't get paid, but that's to say if he gets hurt, if something catastrophic happens to him, not only can the Kansas City Chiefs, as far as I know, can the Kansas City Chiefs cut him without incurring any of it, they get to claw back that bonus money.
Yeah.
You are putting yourself at financial risk. Now, he's only a second-round pick, so he might not have that huge signing bonus that those early top 15, top 30 draft picks get, but you are putting yourself in financial straits. Like, this is beginning to smell very Justin Blackmon-ish to me.
Ooh. Oh, no. When you start bringing that name in to the picture, that's trouble. And such a talented receiver, too. And you just hate to see a repeat of that. But, yeah, Keith, what do you think, man? Do you think so now with this latest incident occurring, do you think a suspension is, like, inevitable? Or I guess they have to wait until everything kind of settles in court, right? But this is not good.
Well, I think it has to be. I think you have to suspend him at this point because he's got the look and feel of a guy who's not learning his lesson. He's not learning his lesson. He's not committing himself to being better. And, you know, I understand the financial implications that Anthony was talking about. I don't think Rashee Rice is thinking that far ahead. You know, he's just not. And it makes you wonder, the Chiefs were so doggedly trying to trade up in the draft this year to get Xavier Worthy. Makes you wonder what they know about his character. Makes you wonder, do they think that he's just going to be one of those guys that just keeps on tripping over himself. And it sucks to see, and I hope he gets it together. I hope he surrounds himself with people that are going to put him in the position to be the best that he can be. But man, it's not this isn't a good look right now. This isn't a good look, and you have to suspend him. I think at least 6 games. Just to send a
what's
message.
that number? 6 is probably right.
I think 6 games right now. But again, it's a long off season. The off season's young. Tyreek Hill shows you that you can always get in trouble if you're looking for it.
Yeah, you ain't kidding.
Yeah, that is the thing about Tyreek Hill is you think about like the list of things that he's been through. None of them have been like that reckless driving charge, 120 miles an hour, and crashing into 3 cars, something like that, permanently injuring multiple people. Like the Chiefs were already looking at potentially seeing him get suspended for more than half the season.
Yeah.
Alvin Kamara just had his incident with the guy that was heckling him in the casino. That resolved right before the season. He ended up with a 3-game suspension. So if we're looking at he gets at least half the season, that could be anywhere between 9 and 12 games. Plus an Alvin Kamara type suspension on top of that. And usually second offenses get punished more harshly. He could miss the year. We might not see Rashee Rice next year. He might have to apply for reinstatement, like we've seen multiple other players that have had to miss an entire season do.
Yeah, could definitely see that happening too. And you brought up the name Justin Blackmon. This is a guy that repeatedly violated the code of conduct for the NFL and just couldn't stay out of trouble in general. And all the talent in the world, that kid, but it just, these kids don't learn. They're young. They get some money. They get a taste of it. They're excited. They think they're invincible. And then, stuff happens, and it sucks. You hate to see stuff like this.
And this, I know I'm going out of the sport right now, but I look at a guy like LeBron James who, from the time he was 15 years old. Oh, wow.
That's crazy. That is wild.
Crazy.
So Jim Kelly's nephew, Chad Kelly, who was Mr. Irrelevant back in like 2016 or 17 or something like that for the Broncos, spent some time in the NFL, was on the practice squad of the Colts, seemed to be kind of revitalizing himself in the CFL. That's terrible news. You hate to see that.
Yeah.
Not good, Dad. Chad Kelly, 9-game suspension. Wow.
But again, it makes you appreciate a guy like LeBron James so much more. Guy who, was crowned King James at 15 years old.
Yeah.
And at 18 years old was given all the fame and riches one could want. Now he was in Cleveland, so he wasn't in, but still, from 18 years old, he was given the world, and he's done nothing but prove everyone right for crowning him King James all that time ago. I mean, I could write a dissertation on how much I admire LeBron James for doing what he's done over the course of his career, but you look at LeBron James, and then you look at Rashee Rice, you look at Justin Blackmon, guys who couldn't handle it. I don't know that I could have handled it. I don't know that me as an 18-year-old could have handled, or a 22-year-old could have handled all the money and fame and fortune that would have been thrown my way. It takes a special person to do it.
Definitely. I for sure would be bankrupt at the very least. I mean, I would blow that money on so many dumb things. I can't even begin the list of dumb things I'd spend that money on. So
There's
I hear
you. No way I wouldn't have Tyreek Hill levels of baby mamas.
Exactly.
That's great.
Exactly.
Oh, that's funny. Good to see you guys out there in the chat. Weston watching from the gym again. Last week he was watching from the sauna during a tornado warning. So we admire your discipline as well as your loyalty to the show, Weston.
Yes.
Absolutely incredible. Mike, good to see you out there. Get the gym to put the show on the big screen, Weston. That would be elite. If you could make that happen, that would be so cool. So cool. More TVs, Jake? I will be getting some in the future, yes, if that's your question. Absolutely, Mike. You can never have enough TVs.
I make that argument to my wife all the time. And it's not like I'm asking for a new TV every year, but like we're now approaching a point where like we have a 75-inch TV. Okay.
Nice.
Pretty big. But now 85s cost about the same as what we paid for a 75.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not also get an 85 now. How do we?
Anthony, I've been barking up that tree with my wife, and she is not budging. We have a 65 and a 55 on top of that for football. You know,
nice.
But you know, right now I have the playoffs on. I have the Phillies game on. I could use another TV just for something else.
Right.
She disagrees.
Listen, when the sports eclipse happens, where there's like every single sport going on at once, that's when you need all those TVs. It's very important, right?
Exactly. I need you to have a talk with my wife, Jake.
Well, listen, I'm not getting very far with my wife either, so I don't know if I'd be much help, Keith. Hilarious. Weston, I get the notifications. I try to jump on. Appreciate it. Thumbs up, fellas. Time for UFL football. We appreciate you, Battlehawks. Always a pleasure to see you. Hope you're watching a lot of UFL football. Oh, and Mike said I met with all the money if you were pro. Yeah. This whole house, this whole basement, it would just be TVs. Absolutely, Mike. Sports media loves our new running back, Keith in fear, Anthony up at nights. I mean, I don't know about that, but I'll take it. Sure. Yeah. What good are the huge TVs when you can only see part of the game? Well, I mean, it's usually they say it's the best view in the stadium, technically.
Yeah.
You're looking at perfect view. You can see everything. You can see things that a lot of fans can't see. So I'd argue against that.
I don't know how you guys watch, but like on Thursday night games, they have the second view that's almost like all 22.
Oh, yeah.
Like a boom, and the guy's like, I've got an interesting Schnapple fact or whatever.
Yep.
But like, it's so much more clear to watch the game on like that all 22.
It's so true.
I just wish that all NFL games had that option. Like, we're getting to there, I think.
Oh, yeah. It's only a matter of time. I think eventually, too, they're going to do like what golf does, and they'll hone in on one player. So like Josh Allen cam. And at all times, there's going to be a camera on Josh Allen following him wherever he goes, which, man, that's a dream come true. But we'll see, man. It's only a matter of time, in my opinion.
I watch F1. I don't know if you guys watch racing and all, but like Sky Sports, it's obviously a British network, so I don't get the opportunity to do this. But like, if you're a Sky Sports subscriber, you can literally watch from the onboard of any of the drivers.
Oh, I've seen that with NASCAR, actually.
That is.
You can do that with NASCAR too.
They've done it with NASCAR. I haven't watched NASCAR in 10 years, but there was a feature where you could get on board with the driver and see the world through their eyes through their car. It was pretty cool. It's great what they're doing these days. Yeah. But again, this necessitates more TVs. This is what I'm saying.
Right.
All these different views, all these
boom.
We need more TVs. I'm gonna make my wife watch this segment.
We'll clip it out for you. We'll send it to her personally.
There you go.
This is for you, Monica. We appreciate you, and Keith loves you. You know, Father's Day. I know you're a cat dad, right, Keith?
I am. I'm actually
Father's
a new cat dad.
Oh, all the more reason. There we go.
We just got little Jupiter to sleep over there on my chair.
Father's Day right around the corner, baby.
Yep.
Right there you go. I love it. Just want to talk about some of the signings too that happened. So most notably, the Dolphins go and sign Odell Beckham Jr. So how are we feeling about that one, Keith?
He's a replacement level player at this stage of his career with a big name. Yep. He's a solid depth piece. But to put this in perspective, I would put him at 4th in the pecking order amongst the Dolphins wide receivers right now. I'd put him behind Hill and Waddle, obviously. And I put him behind Malik Washington, who's going to run a lot of routes out of the slot.
Yeah.
And then the Dolphins offense as a whole, he's probably 7th or 8th in the pecking order if you put him behind Jonnu Smith, put him behind Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, maybe even Jalen Wright, depending on how the Dolphins use him. So he's more so an insurance policy for if something happens to Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle. I don't hate the signing. It's $3 million, and then it can be 8.25, I think, with incentives. So I don't hate the signing, but it's not, I've seen Dolphins fans on Twitter and Dolphins fans on Reddit and saying, how are we supposed to stop this offense with Odell Beckham? It's like, Odell Beckham moves the needle for you, really? um,
Right.
No, the Dolphins have a lot of weapons and they have a lot of mouths to feed, and Odell Beckham needs to be 7th or 8th amongst those mouths. So again, don't hate the signing, but I just kind of shrugged and thought maybe if we fill him with a bunch of cheeseburgers, he could play guard for us.
Love that. Yes. Yeah, it's crazy because it's almost like you guys got him at a deal too, considering how much money he's been fleecing other teams for, right? I mean, you got him for what, 8.25 million? Is that what it is? And that's with the incentives included, right?
Yeah. I don't know if you guys ever saw the show Ballers on HBO.
Oh yeah.
Somebody compared Odell Beckham Jr. to Ricky Jarrett, who's just going from team to team on 1-year deals. And I was like, wow, I love that comparison.
I love that. Hey, if he can get it, I don't blame him. I mean, why not, right? You're still playing football. You're getting paid money to do it. You're on some competitors. I mean, he was with the Ravens last year, with the Dolphins this year. I know you don't want to admit it, Keith, but I think they're still competitive.
They're still competitive. We'll see how the post June 1st signings go. But Beckham won a Super Bowl with the Rams. He's not. Yeah. He's not an idiot. He knows where to go to be a competitor.
Yeah. I love this. Mrs. Keith, let her Keith go. Hilarious. He says Odell is washed. He still was able to register a 500-yard season last year. He was second on the team,
35 receptions.
He's good pretty consistently for that 500-600-ish yard.
Yep.
Which is, if you look at historically, a third receiver for a normal offense is 500 yards.
Yeah.
And assuming, if Tyreek gets banged up a little bit, all right, you have a very serviceable outside wide receiver who can make people miss. Yeah, he looked good for the Rams in the playoffs. He didn't do anything for the regular season, but in the playoffs, he did show up until he tore his ACL. So he's not bad. He's the high end of mid.
Yep.
Yeah,
I agree.
He will give you less consistency than a Marquez Valdez-Scantling, but his ability to perform is significantly higher, and he's going to get paid about the same, which I think is phenomenal value.
Absolutely.
He had 35 receptions for 565 yards, I think, last year. Mm-hmm. That feels like his ceiling, and if he reaches that, I'm cool with it.
Sure,
I'm cool with it because that means the other guys on the Dolphins' offense are eating as well. If he exceeds that, then that means that there's been some injuries, and don't love that.
Or Tua threw for 8,000 yards, one of the two.
Well, you know what? I'm good with the latter.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I'll tell you this: that Braxton Berrios bet, guys, I am. I'm done. Now I'm officially done. I'm not hitting the over on that. Yeah.
So I wonder if Anthony won't let us out on that bet on the cheap.
Oh, no.
Oh, we got receipts, baby.
Oh, we have them on video.
That's hilarious. Anthony, go ahead. Sorry.
The thing is, like Keith was saying, if one of the guys goes down for a game, you got to know Odell Beckham Jr. That's great. Yeah. That's fantastic because that was otherwise going to be Braxton Berrios.
Right.
Yeah.
That was that's phenomenal. That's if you get three, if over the course of the season, there's 2 Tyreek Hill games that he misses and then 1 Jalen Waddle, and all 3 of those are filled by Odell Beckham Jr., that's the best case scenario.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
you guys got weapons. There's no doubt about it. Speaking of weapons, the Buffalo Bills signed Chase Claypool.
Yes.
A couple days ago. So.
I wanted to know what your thoughts were on that, Jake.
You know what? I think you got to take all these signings with a grain of salt. This is a hope that he exceeds whatever he's been over the last 3 years signing. And if he just so happens to be a camp body, it is what it is. We got a 6'4", 238-pound, 5-year veteran that's been a camp body that can maybe teach others what not to do, right?
Yeah.
The best part is, though, he's wearing number 14. So he is replacing maybe the best 5-year stint of any Buffalo Bills receiver, or 4-year stint, whatever it was, 4-year stint of any Buffalo Bills receiver ever, statistically. And, I think Chase Claypool had 55 yards receiving last year, maybe 7 catches, 55 yards, something like that.
Yeah,
So-
it wasn't much. I mean, the most notable play he made for the Dolphins was, I think he recovered a fumble. That was like the most notable play he made for them. But,
I remember that. Yes.
but you know what? He still has all the talent in the world.
Yeah.
And if he
He's
somehow
young.
puts it all together, you got yourself a steal.
His first 2 years, he was an 800+ yard receiver. His rookie year, he really looked like he was going to be legit. He had 800 something yards, 9 touchdowns.
Yep.
And I thought this was going to be the eventual wide receiver 1 for Pittsburgh. And for whatever reason, I think Mike Tomlin has a really good sense of when to get rid of guys, and he knew right at that moment, like, now's the time. We gave him all the chances in the world, and he just didn't seem to take the game seriously. And I don't know if he was a locker room issue per se, but there were definitely questions about, his work ethic and all the stuff that it took to be a wide receiver 1. And that's why the Steelers were fed up with him. And as you can see, he's been passed around the league. I think he's been on 3 different teams since. So not great.
Well, I think he was a locker room issue, but I don't see that being an issue in Buffalo because they have a strong quarterback, whereas the Steelers didn't. Steelers had,
True,
your Mason Rudolphs and your Mitchell Trubisky's and your Kenny Pickett's. Whereas the Bills, they have a bona fide superstar in Josh Allen. So I don't see those same issues that he had in Pittsburgh coming to light in Buffalo. At least not to the same extent they did.
Certainly. Yeah. Well, so this is a good question. Time for UFO football. Is he good? I think he can be. He could have been really good. I think had he had 3 straight 800-yard seasons and he continued playing with the Steelers and developed there, we might be saying something totally different about Chase Claypool right now. But unfortunately, that's not where we're at, and he's trying to climb his way back up in the league. So this is maybe his last chance.
Is Claypool good? No. Is he talented? Yes.
Right.
Can he be good? Potentially.
Yep. Without a doubt. Yeah, so not only did we sign Chase Claypool, there was a signing that I really did like, and it was Dwayne Smoot. Defensive end, played with the Jags the last since 2017, I believe. He was a 3rd-round pick. And for whatever reason, whenever he played against the Buffalo Bills, he would always be our kryptonite. Like, he would have the game of his life against us. So I like this move, going and signing the enemy and bringing him to us. And he'll be a rotational piece, definitely. But it adds a nice, run defender and a guy that can come contribute and sack the quarterback when he needs to. I think he had 5 sacks 2 years ago. He was banged up last year, 10 tackles, I think only a sack or 2 sacks. So the numbers really weren't there last year, but I like the move. I think this is a good depth piece. So I was excited to see that. And then we brought in another guy, Deion Jones, former Pro Bowl linebacker with the Falcons. Another guy that's been banged up the last few years, but he was really good. I mean, even up until about 2021, he was a really, really good linebacker. But again, probably a depth piece and a guy that we can rely on in case what happens last year happens again, where we're back to our, practice squad linebackers or 3rd-string linebackers, having to roll those guys out there. So I like the moves. Again, take all these signings with a grain of salt. We're trying to fill out rosters right now. Some of these dudes will be just camp bodies. Some guys will surprise. They'll make the team, and maybe they'll be big contributors next year. But I think that was it. Are there any Jets signings that happened, Anthony? I don't think so.
I don't think there's anything even close to major, aside from, like, obviously the John Franklin Meyer trade, which I thought was a little bit weird.
Yes. What was that for a six rounder?
6th-round pick, and then he immediately signs a contract, like a 2-year, rips up his current deal, signs a 2-year deal with the Broncos for like $7.5 million. And then when they asked him, like, some Jets guys were like, "How come you wouldn't sign this with the Jets?" He's like, "They didn't offer me anything close to this."
Wow.
Yeah.
$7.5 million, guys. Like, it's not even. That's nothing.
Yeah.
For a guy that's a pretty good pressure generator.
Solid.
I think he was like 3rd on the team with pressures last year, like 60.
Wow.
Like, the dude, he causes problems. But I mean, again, the team, like, it's hard to explain, but like, they've so overinvested in that position over the last few years. The drafting of Will McDonald being one of, in my opinion, the more embarrassing things that they've done. That it's hard to justify even another $7.5 million on a veteran when you've drafted JJ. You've drafted Michael Clemens, who basically doesn't even get to play because of JJ.
Right.
Not JJ, but because of JFM. You drafted Will McDonald again in the first round. Like, you had Bryce Huff, you let him walk. Then you traded for Hassan Reddick. Like, there is such a thing as overinvestment, particularly at a single position.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, I understand letting him walk or getting a trade, trying to get some value out of him, but, like, it does feel like they're letting the players that are blue collar for this team walk and signing the luxury ones. And I this is kind of a Robert Saleh thing to do. If you are a really good coach, you should be able to coach up your later round talents. You should be able to not have to always invest first round picks. And that's, to this point, what they've done with like a JFM or a Bryce Huff. You've seen their ability to do it. But constantly going back to the well, again, just sort of bothers me because, again, you should be able to do it with like lesser talent. You should be able to coach up the higher upside, more raw prospects. Anyway, that's about the only thing I think they did majorly. I don't know. If I'm not mistaken, the Dolphins and the Bills and the Patriots all have their rookie
OTAs
camps coming up in this current week, so we'll have a little bit of that to talk about going forward.
Yes.
The Dolphins also, in Dolphins news, they just signed the guy with the best name in football right now, Storm Duck.
Oh yes.
Great name. First round pick in the all name draft. This was such a good name draft. Storm Duck, absolutely at the top. 100%. But there was the defensive tackle named Tail Spies.
Yes.
Like Spies. Like, tell them what? I don't know. Phenomenal names.
And then, of course, Kool-Aid and some other names
Kool-Aid,
in there.
And it's Rakestraw.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great names this year.
Actually, there was a cool story with Ennis Rakestraw. He wrote a letter to his fourth grade teacher, basically saying, "When I make it in the pros, I want to shout you out or whatever." So he got drafted, and there was a picture of his. So he wrote a letter to this fourth grade teacher. This fourth grade teacher had this letter framed, and they're standing next to each other, arm in arm. And this fourth grade teacher had this letter that Ennis Rakestraw wrote to him in fourth grade.
That is really cool.
Really cool thing.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. I love that. That's cool, man. Well, what's not cool? Here's a great segment. What's not cool? Making the public pay for a newly built stadium. All right, so I'm going to get into some details here. I'll start with the Bills. Anthony, I'll let you take it from there. Talk about your Chicago situation and some other stadium examples. So if you've been living under a rock, the Buffalo Bills are in the process of creating a new stadium, building a new stadium right across from their old stadium, by the way. And to me, I love the location because I am close to the stadium. Now, I know there was a lot of pushback because people wanted it to not only maybe be in a different location, such as like downtown. Most stadiums that are located near a lake are situated along the lake. That is not the case for us. We're located in a suburb neighborhood. Like, it's the most bizarre thing. Now, I will say there are some perks because the tailgate is immaculate, but financially, business-wise, doesn't make the most sense. Not really sure. It does not have a roof either. That was another thing. And I am team no roof, but I know that the majority, especially here in Buffalo, I think they're ready to utilize a dome and see the best possible version of their players on the field. And that pains me to say because I love the rough and tough, cold, frozen tundra football. Like, when I think of nostalgia, I think of games being played in the snow. When I watch NFL films, those are the games I want to watch. I want to watch the Eagles-Lions go at it. I want to see Kelvin Johnson with a big old snow-covered visor and, snow in his face mask. I love that. Like, that's just an awesome thing. And for the players themselves, I mean, they're like little kids out there having the time of their lives, and they're getting paid millions of dollars to do it. I mean, that's awesome. Sure, it doesn't give you the best quality football all the time, but it definitely gives you a story, and it definitely keeps your eyes glued to the TV. There's no doubt. Now into the financial piece of this. So this new stadium is set to be approximately $1.5 billion across the total course of this project. And guess what? We have a billionaire owner who is not funding a single penny of it. It is all coming from Erie County and the fine taxpayers of Erie County. I'm one of them. Now, I would say this is great because my taxes are actually going to something I care about. But when I hear that a billionaire is not funding a single penny of this stadium, I think it brings up some issues. And a lot of people here in Buffalo are feeling some type of way about it. And then to add insult to injury, guys, they're rolling out these PSLs, personal seating licenses. And it is essentially the cost of a car to secure a PSL, to fully cover the cost of a PSL. So, for instance, my boss, he's got good seats. He sits in the club levels. He's like right at the 50-yard line. He's been a season ticket holder for almost 20 years or so. And they've been doing it kind of like in a pecking order. So the people with the nicer seats, they're going first to pick out their new seats in the new stadium for the season ticket holders, right? So he came back, and I've never seen the guy so distraught in my entire life. And then he told me exactly how much it would cost. So we're talking per seat for a PSL license. It's $20,000 a seat. So $20,000, he has 2 seats. So $40,000 for that. And on top of that, you are also responsible for then covering the cost of your tickets, which those were also $5,000 a piece. So $50,000. Luckily, this man has the money, but the majority of Buffalo, New York, I mean, this is a blue collar city. Money doesn't grow on trees around here. It's like we work hard to go to these games, and the one thing that brings us joy is watching the Buffalo Bills play football, right? So it's kind of a slap in the face to us as a fan base, in my opinion, because not only are we funding the stadium, but the cost of everything is going way up, and then we're also responsible for these PSLs. And I think it's just outrageous. I think it's crazy. So I'll shut up for a second. I want to hear your guys' take on this.
Good answer.
I'll let Keith
go first.
I'll let Keith go first. Yeah, let Keith go first. I know he's passionate about this.
It's despicable. No, I have very strong feelings about this kind of thing. Terry Pegula bought the Buffalo Bills in 2014 for a little over $1 billion. The Bills' current valuation is at $4.7 billion, which means he has quadrupled his money since buying the Bills. He's quadrupled his money in a decade. No reason why he shouldn't be able to fund at least part of this stadium. No reason why, if the New York taxpayers are paying for his stadium, why he should jack up ticket prices the way he has. Just no. And I agree with you about the outdoor.
This is correct, by the way. I just looked this up because I wanted to see the latest. So yeah, it says the stadium is estimated to cost $1.7 million. Under an agreement with the state of New York, taxpayers will pay $850 million of the construction costs, as well as pay for all the maintenance and repairs once the stadium opens. It is the largest, it is the largest taxpayer contribution ever for a National Football League facility.
So
wild.
Just for reference, Stephen Ross bought a 50% stake in the Dolphins for $500 million back in 2009. Dolphins' current valuation is just over $5 billion, which means now you cut that figure in half because Stephen Ross is a 50% owner. Stephen Ross he's made 500% on his investment.
Yeah.
When it came time for renovations to Hard Rock Stadium was opened in 1987. So it was opened as Dolphin Stadium and Pro Player Stadium. It started out as Joe Robbie Stadium.
It's the Joe Rob to me still.
Yeah.
Joe Robbie, always, forever.
But it's an old stadium. It needed renovations. And Stephen Ross went to the Miami-Dade taxpayers and said, I want y'all to foot the bill for this. Stephen Ross is worth $7.1 billion.
Man.
Went to the Miami taxpayers and said, I want you guys to foot the bill. They said, no, Stephen, you're worth $7.1 billion. You pay the money.
Yeah.
So he did. He paid $350 million to make the renovations to the Dolphins Stadium, Hard Rock Stadium. And he gets to say, well, I paid all the money out of my own pocket. But the reality of it is, you, a member of the bourgeoisie, is trying to make the plebs pay your bills for you. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's fair. I'm going to leave out, the Jerry Joneses of the world, who bought the Cowboys for $150 million. Now the Cowboys are worth almost $10 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And he made the Dallas taxpayers pay for a portion of AT&T Stadium. About $600 million worth of that stadium, actually. So I'm going to leave that out as well. But I'm going to bring it to Anthony because I do have strong feelings on this, and I don't want to veer off topic.
No, Keith, I love it. I think you set that up perfectly. You put it out there, and I think it makes a lot of sense with what you're saying. I'm with you on that. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's just wild to me. It's a whole hell of a lot of money, and
then you had the balls to jack up the ticket prices.
Right. That's really what it is too. Like, I think that actually got me more so because I'm like, oh, new stadium, whatever. Then I saw the figures. I'm like, that's a lot of money. And then I'm like, oh, he's not paying a dime. Okay, cool. What are we getting out of this as fans, right? The diehards that sit there that have watched guys like Anthony Thomas run 35 times for 89 yards, have watched the team through 17 years of a drought period, wondering who's going to play quarterback on Sunday. Watching guys get injured and heartbreak set in after we start 4-0 and then our season go down the tubes and we finish
watching
7-9.
JT O'Sullivan start games for you.
Nathan Peterman.
JT never did, actually.
No.
I don't think JT actually ever played for the Bills. You might be thinking of Brian Brom, but that's another great name for you. So Brian Brom, throw him in the mix, right? Gabron Hamden, Nathan Peterman. Thank you, Anthony.
Yeah.
There's just so much that goes into it. And I think, like, as a diehard, it hurts me a little bit, right? Like, and I know it's a choice. It's a choice to go to a Buffalo Bills game. You don't really have to buy a ticket or do anything like that. But when it's coming out of your tax dollars, I mean, that's another thing too. But my dad makes a good point here, and I do remember this. So when Pagula bought the Bills in 2014, he made his money in oil and basically said there's no concern for the money because he said if he needs the money, he'll just drill another well. And I remember him saying that specifically. And now it's interesting because in terrible news. What's that?
Dry?
Yeah, they might be. They might be a little dry. But I will say, sad story. His wife, Kim Pagula, I guess they're saying right now she has very low mental capacity. She had a stroke like a year and a half ago, and she's not doing so hot. And I think that may be part of the reason as to why he's putting a minority portion of the Bills up for sale. I think it's like 25% or something like that. He claims that, it's nothing financially. There's no issues there or anything like that. And the Bills are here to stay. But, it does beg the question as to what exactly is going on there. But yeah, this is a good point, Dad. So I want to bring up, I will say this. I looked at some of the pictures and the renderings and they do look cool. Like it does look awesome. It's exciting. It's a new stadium, but the flip side of this is the fact that, I mean, it's all being done through public funds for more or less. And it's the largest taxpayer contribution ever in NFL history. Like,
yeah.
Holy smokes, man. What a brilliant business model, right? Like crazy. So here's some of the pictures, guys. I'll bring it up here. I'm going to take a look. And as you can see, I think they said about 60 to 65% of it will be covered. It's actually angled. Right now, the current stadium is angled at 28 degrees. This one's going to be angled at 34 degrees. So it's a little bit steeper, but that's also in part of being able to cover more of those seats. With that overhang there. It's actually modeled after the Tottenham Hotspur current stadium. So they took some inspiration from that. But
it looks really eerily similar to that.
Yeah. It's almost the exact same. But it's cool. I'm excited for it, but this other piece of it, it's definitely frustrating to say the least. But yeah, this is right off the Buffalo Bills website. That's where I got these pictures here.
It looks great, Jake. But given the ticket prices, like you went to what 4 or 5 games last year?
Yeah.
It seemed like every home game you were going there.
That is true. Not anymore.
Yeah. How many games can you afford to go to now? Maybe 1, 2?
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, ticket prices are going to probably go up even this year just to kind of condition us as we go into this new stadium. And then when that happens, you got the people paying this PSL money, and who knows if they're going to want to sell those tickets. And if they do, they're going to have to make their money back somehow. So those prices are going to be sky high.
Yep.
Crazy. Let's see what Timmy says here. Timmy, thanks for joining us tonight, brother. Love you. You're more than welcome to hop on too at any point here, because I know you got some good takes about this. Cool video I saw about how billionaires avoid taxes. Basically, continuous loop of money, taking out loans against the stocks they own in their company. Essentially, they make no money and indebted to loans. Yeah.
Functionally, people talk about how like Pagula doesn't have this money laying around, but functionally, he could just take a loan on the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
Right.
That's just they're just an asset to him. It's like if it's equity in a home, and like we said, they're 3 times more valuable than they were when you bought them.
Yeah,
3 times more valuable than he is. The equity's astronomical.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
When you get to numbers in the billions, they really are just numbers at that point.
Just keeping score at that point.
Yeah, exactly. But
I wish, brother. I wish. Not enough. It's never enough.
No. But I mean, Anthony, you had some takes on this that I'd like to hear.
Well, functionally, there's a few things that need to be. There's 3 major points that need to come up when we're talking about like what are the consequences of footing huge amounts of money. First one I want to talk about is where this money comes from, because they think that like, the state's just going to come up with $900 million, and they're just going to pay it, and it's going to be upfront, and that's fine. That's never actually how it happens. The state actually has to borrow that money. They put out public bonds. Those public bonds have to get paid back over a maturity date. So I'm going to give you the first example that I came into with this was actually like when I was finishing up my undergraduate degree. I was telling Jake this. The Miami Marlins, back when they were the Florida Marlins, Miami Marlins were begging for a new stadium. They were threatening, in fact, to leave Miami, go somewhere else or whatever. And the state of Florida, this was right before the great financial crisis of 2008, decided that they would come up with a way to pay for the stadium. They paid about $600 million for the stadium. Keep in mind, it was around 2005, 2006, something like that. So it was a very low interest rate environment.
Right.
Their borrowing costs over the course of paying back 40 years, because that's how long the maturity date on those bonds would be. By the end of it, they would have paid back about $2.4 billion on that $600 million that they gave the Marlins. So effectively, we're not talking about the fact that like it's not just taxpayers are paying $600 million for the Miami Marlins stadium, and obviously about that much, a little bit more, I think, for the Buffalo Bills. They're paying the interest on that $600 million over 40 years.
Gosh.
So we're talking about bonds that will effectively cost them in the billions of dollars, not even just the hundreds of millions over the life. That, by the way, these stadiums are only staying up for about 20, 25 years.
That's another.
They're going to be paying for the stadium for years past the point that the stadium is being forced to close, or they're going to have to rebuild on top of the stadium for decades.
Man. Yeah. That's disgusting.
Put in perspective that. That's one. Two. One of the things that really got me into this topic, again, like 15 years ago or so, when I was finishing on my undergrad, was we were The Baltimore Orioles moved to Sarasota because the Sarasota County Commission got played by the Red Sox. So I don't know if you guys know anything about this, but spring training baseball is always like a ping pong. Some teams are trying to leave their state. It's a miniature version of what we see on the big screen with these big stadiums, because teams are always trying to get better, newer facilities for their spring training games, and they're willing to bargain things like what other baseball leagues can we put there during the rest of the year or whatever. So for the longest time, we had the Cincinnati Reds in Sarasota. For the longest time, we had the Reds, and they're a family-owned team, or they were a family-owned team, and they were very good to us, and they had their high A baseball team there also. Now, they were in Ed Smith Stadium, which is a really old stadium, probably, older than the Joe Robb, like early 80s. It was, but it was an A-ball stadium. What are you expecting?
Yeah.
The Red Sox were threatening to leave their home, and the Sarasota County Commission dragged their feet against the Reds, trying to get the Red Sox in. The Red Sox played Sarasota like a fiddle. The Reds left at the last minute. The Red Sox pulled out, and suddenly we had nobody.
Oh, my gosh.
The county commission, in a midnight session, open to nobody in the public, signed an agreement with the Baltimore Orioles.
You got to be kidding me, man.
This is what my thesis was about.
That is incredible. That is absolutely incredible.
I went line by line into their agreement, and it was it was essentially the exact same agreement that you're seeing with the Buffalo Bills, where like stadium maintenance. That means that basically anything above a light bulb needing to get changed in the stadium over the life of that stadium still gets footed by the taxpayers. In order for like the community to use the facility, they have to ask permission for a facility that they own. They lease it usually for the token amount of $1 a year to the team. And they do that because if anything major happens to it, it's not owned by anybody but the taxpayer. It's a scam.
Sure is. And this isn't like the Green Bay Packers where the city owns it and you can purchase your own little certificate saying, I own the Green Bay Packers. No.
The Green Bay Packers are an interesting example. I actually pulled up their financial records because it's the only organization in the NFL that we actually have financial disclosures for.
Yeah.
So like it's one of the few, and it's really cool. It's another topic that I don't want to get into right now, but it's a really cool topic to be able to discuss in terms of like the profitability and why the valuations of the teams seem to be so high. That's a totally different topic. I don't want to get into it, but so I wanted to start the Marlins one because that's setting up this Bears one, because this Bears one's a very minor version of it. So basically what the Bears have put out there is that they want the state of Illinois to finance $900 million for the new stadium. Now the Bears say they're going to pay about $2 billion, but they want the state to put $900 million of it on top of the additional 150 to 250 million that it's going to take for infrastructure improvements. That means better roads, better trains, better access for hotels, and that, which is necessary. You would expect to be able to like host a stadium. It's going to be a domed stadium in theory on the same area as they currently have. Now, there's a couple problems with the current location. First one being that area along the lakefront is gorgeous. It's stunning. It's amazing. It should be a patrimony to humanity because that area has been, I don't know if it's state park, but Grant Park has been allocated so that it can never have developers ever develop on it. That land is phenomenal. It's gorgeous. It's sacred as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
There's a history to it that goes back more than 100 years to first the World's Fair of 1893. That is right near Navy Pier. That's true. You can walk to Navy Pier from there. But what's more important is down here you have the Field Museum. Right above it, back here where you can't see, you have the Field Museum, the Shed Aquarium. You also have the Adler Planetarium. That's all in this, right where that bear is right there. And right before that, you also have the you have the Art Institute of Chicago. So 4 of the major museums are all within walking distance of the stadium. It's a gorgeous campus. That stadium was built before right around World War II. It's Soldier Field to honor the soldiers returning from World War I.
Right.
It was used in the 1933 World's Fair. It really is one of the few historic stadiums that we have in the United States that's it's going to get torn down. Additionally, that stadium location, there's nowhere to build up because, like I said, it's basically state park. You can't build anything there. The location they were planning on building originally was in Arlington Park. It was the old horse track stadium. They've torn that down, and it's a huge location. You can build a ton of stuff on it, but the Bears would have to put more of their money into it, and they don't want to have to pay the additional taxes that it would cost. And they would have to own the stadium, and it wouldn't be built by the state. There's a lot of ramifications towards owning your own stadium that the McCaskies don't want. Anyway, so like I was saying, it's going to cost taxpayers about $900 million. But again, that's going to be amortized over 40 years increments, which is to say that by the end of it, the full figure that the Chicago Tribune has for it is, where is it? Give me 1 second. 4.8 billion, because of course we're going to be borrowing at today's rates, which are significantly worse than they were. So the state of Illinois is going to have to pay back 4.8 billion for what is essentially a minority portion of the stadium that they would be building, all for, again, to knock down an historic monument that has seen Chicago through a lot on a lakefront that can't be developed on any further. Infrastructure improvements that would really only benefit the stadium because, like, we have the United Center. Like, concerts don't really go to Soldier Field unless they really, really, really could sell them out. We don't have that much going on in Soldier Field. It's not like we have the Olympics coming. It's not like it's going to be a multi-purpose facility. They show basketball, like the Final Four is going to be.
Yeah, now you guys can host a Final Four.
Once every couple decades or whatever. Like, there's no way you can justify $4.8 billion when our schools are the way they are.
Yeah. When
our roads are the way that they are. When our train system is as incomplete as it is. It's never going to pay that.
Agreed, man. It's crazy. When you put it that way, too, just talking about how much it's actually going to be in the long run, it's even that much more sickening.
Just buy the freaking team. Just buy the team at that point.
Right. Man. Yeah, it's a polarizing topic. You know, it is. And I feel like a lot of people are on the same page with us. Like, they're on our side when we're talking about.
That's why these votes never go through. That's why, like, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to get voted down. That's why these deals have to get done in the back room, in the back alleys, because the public doesn't. They're wise to it. This isn't like it was in the 80s where they're like, oh, the jobs are going to pay for it. The amount of tourism doesn't add up to anything.
Right.
It really doesn't. I've run the numbers. You can do it even at the back of your head. If you on the back of your hand, you're going to get the 8 games of that team playing in your state. Now the salary cap is $200 million. The state tax in Florida or in Chicago or in Illinois rather is 5%, something like that. So $200 million times 5% only comes to about $12 million a game for game checks. $50-60 million at the end of the year. That's nothing. Something like that. $50-60 million at the end of the year is nothing. Like, the players don't usually live in the same county. Most of them live in Florida. Most of them live in Texas. They live in states where they can dodge taxes in different ways. And it's the same reason why every football player that you've ever heard of has his own charity. They're not doing charitable works. Like, it's a makes work project for their high school buddies.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Like,
yeah.
The money never really circulates. It never goes back in. You build schools, it stays in the community. Those teachers have to live in the community.
Yeah.
Like it gets the roads, public infrastructure. That money stays in the community. It circulates.
So
with football, that's why it's such a thing.
So I guess the question here, Anthony, is this: you're obviously very learned on this subject. First off, do the Bears need a new stadium? Secondly, if yes, how would you go about paying for it in an ideal world?
The Bears do need a new stadium. They bungled the last one. Like when they redid Soldier Field. I don't know if you've ever been out to Chicago. It just looks like they put a salad bowl on top of Soldier Field.
I've been to Chicago, but I was out there during the summertime. I went to a game at Wrigley. That's why I was in Chicago. Yeah,
Wrigley's gorgeous. No, they do need a new stadium. That's fair. I would have built on the Arlington Park land. If you're going to do it, I'm fine with giving them a tax abatement. I'm fine with letting them pay less in property taxes than it's probably worth to help them save. That's the one thing that Chicago, I don't think, has done a good job of. Because, like I said, this particular area is really not great for development. There's no, you can see from here, you've got the rail lines, which are necessary. You've got McCormick Center, which is already built, that does have some hotels and has some capacity, and has their own little stadium in that area for the Chicago WNBA team. But you've got the lake to the east, which can't be developed on. You've got already a ton of development to the right, to the west, which is a lot of housing. You're not going to be able to have the kind of like infrastructure that you could if you'd have done it with our Arlington Park. Now, the argument is Arlington Park is further away from Chicago. That's true, but it's also not true because we're one of the few cities in the country that has good public transportation, and you can just take the Metro line straight out there. It's just like Wrigley, man. Like you can be out there in 30 minutes, 40 minutes. It's 2 train stops from where I live in Des Plaines. So like it's really, and I'm 40 minutes away from the city, like door to door on the train. So like you can really, on that part of land, they were going to put hotels, they were going to put restaurants, nightclubs, and really develop the area and diversify the economy of the place. And this is just not the best location to do it. Because again, you're butted up against a lot of historic buildings, you're in a museum campus, you're in a public park. There's not much you can do, aside from the fact that it is really kind of a glory piece. Like
Anthony, Mike posed a question there. What does that mean for the average taxpayer per year? What's coming out of your pocket?
I have no idea. I can't tell you how much it's going to be cost. I know that we're going to be paying for it long past the point that we're going to have to get a new stadium. That's the thing that sickens me. Is that they're not asking for money like that's going to be paid immediately. They're saying that it's going to come out of a hotel tax, which is a 2% tax. That's a fund that the state put in specifically for things like these stadiums. But a lot of that hotel tax money is already tied up because the White Sox just got a new stadium. And the White Sox new stadium is in a fantastic location. It's away from the lake. It's in an undeveloped part of like the southwest part of Chicago that kind of needs that area built up. But it's basically supposed to be funded by hotel money that's not going to be there. So either they're going to have to raise the hotel tax, which is going to make our hotels less competitive, or it's going to have to come out via some other kind of tax.
Man, I love what Timmy says here. This stuff should be put to a public vote. Our tax dollars is us investing. We should decide where money gets allotted locally and federally. Yeah,
completely agree,
Timmy.
Governor, I'll give it to him. J.B. Pritzker immediately shot down this offer by the Chicago Bears. He said, "This is a non-starter. Like this is not even something we're going to consider right now." So
what is the plan? What's the timeline for this, Anthony? Like, if this does go through.
So here's a weird thing. The last time the Chicago Bears signed an agreement with the state of with the city of Chicago. They signed like a 10-year lease or something like that with an out clause after 5, and that gets progressively cheaper until they get to that date. So like the time frame on this is like whenever it is they feel like getting started on it, because they are still tied into a lease, and they own the Arlington Park. They own the Arlington Parkland. I honestly, genuinely don't think there's a big chunk of me that doesn't think that the stadium's going to get built. I still think it's going to go to Arlington Park because I think the land makes too much sense. I think this is kind of a pipe dream, and I think it's kind of a political. Maybe they're hoping to get a new governor in before Pritzker leaves, but I have to tell you, he's terribly popular here. He's extremely popular with some of the policies he's come up with over the last 3 or 4 years. I don't know. We'll see. Timeline, we don't know, because once they break ground, they can't play there. Like I said, there's nothing else there. It's not like when the Mets knocked down their stadium and they were still playing in Shea until the end because they were just building on the parking lot across the street. Right. There's no parking lot across the street.
That's what the Bills are doing, actually. So
that's what the Phillies did.
I don't know if you remember, but like the last time the Bears had renovations on Soldier, they were playing in Champlain for 2 years.
I do remember that.
They were playing at the University of Illinois Stadium.
University of Illinois, yep. I remember that.
A long time ago, but like it happened. And my guess is that's the thing that would have to happen. That's the thing that doesn't make so much sense about this. If they did the Arlington Park one, they broke ground on that tomorrow, they could take 5 years on the stadium. It doesn't even matter because they're tied into Soldier for the next 5-6 years anyway.
I'm trying to find I have some updated pictures here of the stadium.
Okay.
They did a drone flyover of it actually too that I had just seen recently. Let's see. I'm gonna see if I can find it here. I have it actually on my phone. I'm gonna just send it to my email and I'll share it with you guys because it's kind of cool. I drive by it every single day, and I gotta say it's cool to watch get pieced together. But I think my biggest issue talking about the Bills Stadium. So if you're just gonna build a new stadium across the street, when people are already sort of unhappy with the fact that it's right in the middle of the snow belt, and I mean, you've seen it the last few years. We've had to actually cancel or reschedule games because of it. Not only are you're funding the whole thing, you're going to run into issues like that. You can't use it year round because it's not a dome. There's just like, what's the benefit of it? What's the point? And we just renovated Highmark Stadium too. In addition to that, like not too long ago, a few years ago. So what are we doing here? What are we doing? Now, if this were to go like downtown along the lakefront where it's just like abandoned and it needs to be built up. Like, I think it's crazy to me that we have not built enough along the waterfront here in Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
That would be I guess that if we're doing a new stadium, that would be my vote for where the new stadium were to go. I am happy, obviously, because it's close to me, but financially, realistically, they probably should have done something like that. And if you're going to do that, then you probably build a dome. Unfortunately, I hate to say that, but yeah. Crazy, man. So, no, I mean, it's a great topic. Anthony, you are very well educated on this stuff. I appreciate your input on it because I don't know the first thing about it. I just see the figures and I'm like screaming. I'm just like.
Yeah. I know it seems like sometimes I come across as like the just watch the tape guy, but I swear to God, I'm the biggest nerd you're going to meet. Like,
you know your stuff, man.
This is the direction I actually came from. Like when I started looking at sports, it was really the financial aspect of it, and then it was like the analytics aspect of it. And I just arrived at the just watch the tape stuff late.
I love it, man. Keith, any thoughts? Any final thoughts on both of these new stadiums coming out here?
Taxpayers, you and I, blue collar taxpayers, white collar taxpayers, middle class, lower middle class, paying the bills for billionaires.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see it. And it's probably an oversimplification of what's actually going down. Obviously it is based on everything that Anthony was just saying. But fact of the matter is that you know, Jerry Jones shouldn't be asking the people of Dallas to fund a single penny of AT&T Stadium. Stephen Ross shouldn't be asking the people of Miami-Dade to fund a single penny of the $350 million renovation they put into Hard Rock Stadium. And Terry Pagula shouldn't be asking you, Jake, to pay for a single penny of this new stadium that he's putting up. And Lamar Hunt shouldn't be threatening to leave Kansas City if the Kansas City taxpayers don't pay his bills. You're an NFL owner. You're richer than the top, 0.001% of the world. Act like it. Pay your bills. And stop asking the lower class, the middle class to pay the bills for you. It's just and don't BS me with, well, it's going to bring a ton of revenue to the city and stuff like that. I'm sure Chicago's mayor is saying, well, this will get a Super Bowl to Chicago, because we're not getting a Super Bowl in Chicago right now because they're going to have to play at Soldier Field. I don't want to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you, Keith. I love it, man. Very well put. Yeah, this is the overhead shot. This is actually not super recent because they've done a lot more work since, but this is just the beginnings of it. They're going right to town on this thing. This thing is slated to be open in 2026, and right across the street, it's not pictured here, but across the street on the other side is the current stadium. So pretty wild. And I think the plan is to demolish that stadium and to put in some parking lots. Now, it's an interesting area, like I said, guys, because it's all like suburbs, and you're right in the middle of like a neighborhood, and then you have businesses on the other side. There's Louis Hot Dogs right there. There's a community college as well that's literally right next to it / behind it. So I'm wondering what they're going to do with all of that. I think the plan is to probably move that community college, the headquarters of it, to the North Towns where their other headquarters are. But there's a lot of questions still from my end, and I don't know all the details admittedly about this, but from what I'm seeing, they're not messing around. They're going to town on it, and it is what it is at this point, unfortunately. But here we are, So
yeah,
gotta love it, baby. The problem is, the sad part is, guys, there's really nothing that we can do about it.
I know.
I know. It is what it is, right?
But
we
the thing
complain,
is,
but
we can complain and we can keep making us think about this, because the more of these that get put up to a vote, and the more of these that get shut down. Every single time it gets shut down, the only way these things are going through is through back alley deals.
Yep.
Yeah. That's and it makes governors so unpopular they wind up getting kicked out. You would hope at some point these politicians start to learn their lesson. That's really the only thing we can hope for, is that our community starts to learn a lesson. Like Miami stood up to Stephen Ross.
Yeah.
They had to get.
That's what I was about to say. They said to Stephen Ross, "No, we're not going to pay this $350," and he's fine. I'll pay it.
I guess.
Okay, buddy.
Reach in my pocket. I'll write
$1 billion.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Crazy. The goal will make $3 billion in the next 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Nope. The NFL, and that's the thing. Like, all these NFL owners, they're sitting on just rapidly appreciating assets that are just. The NFL is just every NFL team, the NFL brand, the NFL logo, everything is just skyrocketing in price and notoriety and fame. And the Dallas Cowboys, again, in 1989, the Dallas Cowboys were bought by Jerry Jones for $150 million. Today, the Cowboys are worth just under $10 billion.
Yep. They are the most valuable team in the NFL. And they have been pretty much the whole time.
They're the most valuable team in the world, Anthony. They're more valuable.
It's got to be up there, right?
Yeah, they're more valuable than Man U. They're more valuable than Real Madrid. They are the most valuable team in the world. The Dallas Cowboys are. I looked this up, and this is what we're talking about here. So when Jerry Jones asked, and the hotel tax, I think there was a 5% hotel tax that was tacked on to the people of Dallas. 2% some other tax, and I think it was 0.5% of another tax. Why is Jerry Jones not paying this whole thing?
Right.
He's the only one making profits off of it. He's the only one who owns the asset at the end of the day.
You bought something for $150 million, and it's now worth just under $10 billion. What?
Let's make no mistake.
Jerry
Jones comes from oil. Jerry Jones made his money in oil.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a poor man. This is not a guy that. This is not like a Mark Davis whose dad bought the team for $50.
Yeah.
300 years ago or whatever. This isn't the McCaskies who have owned the team for 100 years. This isn't the Maras who have owned the team for 100 years or whatever. These old owners are not the same as the new money owners.
He made his money in oil, but now he made his money in the Dallas Cowboys.
He did.
Jerry Jones is worth as much as he is because of the Dallas Cowboys, because he's the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. And there's no reason on God's green earth that you can give me to convince me why Jerry Jones shouldn't have just paid for this himself.
100%.
It's called Jerry World.
Yeah, it's literally.
But Jerry only paid for about half of it.
Crazy, man. The rich get richer, right, Keith?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Great analogy. Time for UFL football. Analogy to this is Jake winning $10 million. I would never, by the way, winning $10 million and going around asking for handouts from the homeless.
I was saying this to my sister. I was saying this to my sister the other night. If I were to take my niece out for ice cream, take her out for ice cream, we get, she gets what she wants. We go up to the register. I say, okay, you're paying, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, pay the man. Goes up to me.
Wait, what?
I'm Uncle Keith. I'm 9 years old.
Yeah. I love that.
You have a job. I'm 9. Who should be paying for this ice cream right now? All right, fine. All right, fine. I guess I'll pay for your ice cream. This is what Stephen Ross did. Okay, fine. I guess I'll pay for the renovation. You ingrate.
I love that, Keith. That's a really good analogy. I like that one.
There was a third point that I completely forgot about. I'm going to be really quick on it though, and this has to do with investing in local infrastructure. So, one of the things that got me into it was there's an article in used to be a giant periodical called the Baseball Prospectus, which was a bunch of analytics dudes just writing articles and doing random research on stuff. One of the things that they had was about stadiums, and this got me super interested in the topic. They said that because there aren't a lot of published studies on this, they had to take what they could from what had been out there. They compared the investment in baseball stadiums at this point, because it's baseball that we're talking about, versus that of doing other things like paying for a world-class symphony orchestra, being a fraction of the cost and bringing in basically the same tax revenue. The symphony orchestra might perform 6 days a week and twice on Sunday. They might get fewer guests, but I don't know if you've been in the last orchestra near you, but it's $150 a ticket.
Wow. Yeah.
Over the course of a year, an orchestra that's in season, 8 months out of the year and 9 months out of the year, doing 100 performances every 2 months, that money adds up pretty quickly. You get the same rate of return and a higher rate of return to that investment than you would to the exact same for professional sports.
Wow.
The jobs are more permanent. I know. It's wild.
Disgusting. Yeah. Insane, dude. Insane.
How many
I love it. What? Yeah. I appreciate the input, fellas. This is great. I see Mike put a comment. Golf is known for being a sport for rich people, even as random hackers, and now football going to ruin a lot of family members and keep people home watching games. Absolutely, Mike. Yeah. We'll end up with the visiting fans teams taking over, or just not real fans at all. You know, are any of us going to be able to go to the Super Bowl if one of our teams gets in? I mean,
we know the covered boxes are owned by Citibank,
right?
We know that those are the guys that are showing up to the games. They leave in the third quarter when the team's down by 3.
Yeah,
I hate that.
They show up late. They leave early. They're just trying to get out of the parking lot.
But as far as the visiting fans taking over, Mike, I agree. And a perfect example of this is the Sixers. Their game 4 matchup against the New York Knicks when they're in the playoffs. Just this past week, the Knicks fans came down and took over because the Philadelphia Sixers season ticket holders put their tickets up for sale, and the Knicks fans snatched them up. This is something that's going to happen with the Bills fans. They're going to, it's going to get down to a game against the Dolphins, say, and they're going to put their tickets up for sale because they're trying to recoup some of the cost of this $20,000.
Yeah.
And then $5,000 on top of that per game.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to recoup some costs here, and generally speaking, people can't afford that. So you're going to get the rich guy from Miami who's going to fly out to Buffalo and watch the game, or the rich guy from New York City, some Jets fan is going to come in and take the seat of what should have been a Bills fan.
Jake Podger.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it makes me so sad. Timmy, Pagula bought the Sabres for $189 million, and they are worth it. By the way, he owns the Sabres too, guys. He owns the Bills, Sabres, Bandits.
Yep.
So he's doing pretty good.
Man.
Right. Bought the Sabres for $189. They're worth $750. Sabres have not made the playoffs in 13 years and have been bottom of the league all those years. Amen, Timmy. Preach, brother. Preach. Yep. Time for UFL football and being always injured.
He is, but he was toughing it out. He was playing. He came back from his torn meniscus, and he was playing. He was out there, and he comes home to Philadelphia, and he's greeted by Knicks fans.
Yeah,
hell of a thing.
That's a hard pill to swallow.
Come back early from a torn meniscus.
Mm-hmm.
And he was pissed. He mentioned it after the game that why were there so many Knicks fans in the audience? What's with that? He's not wrong.
Yeah. Sad state of affairs. Weston, back, baby. Listen, you're going to have to go back and rewatch this, brother. I know your Chiefs looking into possibly moving out of where they're at. Where are they currently? I know. So
moving from Kansas City to Kansas City, in fairness.
Right. 2 different Kansas cities.
Yep.
Crazy. But yeah, no, this is a really interesting one, guys. I really appreciate the insight here. I'm so done with this stuff. So Anthony, Keith, thank you for enlightening me.
That was Anthony. This is Anthony's baby.
Absolutely. It was much needed. I think this is it's good to talk about too. I mean, I think more people need to talk about this stuff, and maybe in the future we can get more situations like the Stephen Ross situation, right?
Yeah. I mean, that seems to be what the Kansas City taxpayers are doing to the Hunts right now. So I hope they continue to fight the good fight.
I wish the NFL would put more pressure on this. I wish the NFL would. You're not moving. We will make conditions so that you have cheap loans. Whatever, you are not leaving. This is not.
Well, they aren't leaving though. That's the thing.
Right.
All right. They might move from Kansas City, Missouri to Kansas City, Kansas, but they aren't leaving.
Sure.
Kansas City Chiefs will remain the Kansas City Chiefs.
We have to protest. The combine next year. We're all going, guys.
That's right. Hell yeah. Which I think Kansas is going to get it because the Missouri side is a dump. All right.
I hear the exact opposite from people from Missouri. So, you guys need to come to a consensus. Which side is crap?
Well, Weston's from Kansas, so he'll never say the Kansas side is, so it makes sense. But I love it, guys. This is awesome. I really appreciate the insight. Like I said, this is a good discussion, and I think, more people should look into this stuff and just get educated on it. So, Anthony, thank you, sir. Thank you for all the facts.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for agreeing to have this conversation, because this is absolutely that's always burning on my heart. And every time a stadium comes up, it's just I gotta get it out.
Well, we'll have more of these discussions in the future, I'm sure. I am sure. So, to everyone out there in the chat, we appreciate you guys. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Next week, we'll be back at 7:30 with another great topic, I'm sure. Not sure what that's going to be just yet.
We'll figure something out.
Yeah. It's weird not like talking about draft picks and doing when you do that for so many months in a row. It's like you're just conditioned to do that. Now I'm kind of lost. But
a little bit antsy right now.
Yeah. If there's one thing that rings true, the NFL never sleeps. So there's always going to be news. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
But Anthony,
I thank you so much. Jet up.
Hell yeah. Keith,
Fins up.
Fins up. Go Bills. You guys have a great night. Take care, and we'll see you next week. Go Bills.